Please, take a moment to close your eyes. Try to remember a specific sound from your childhood. Perhaps it is the loud metallic clatter of the thick glass soda bottles being delivered to your street. Or maybe it is the distinct, bitter smell of real tobacco mixed with the sharp scent of pine aftershave on a Sunday morning. Welcome back to a time that lives only in our memories. Today, we are going on a gentle journey back to Hungary in the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s. We will rediscover 20 everyday things and rituals that we have completely forgotten about, but which once shaped our entire world. As we walk down this quiet, nostalgic path, pay close attention. I have saved the most touching, deeply emotional memory for the very end, something that will surely bring a warm tear to your eye. Before we begin our list, let us remember how time used to feel. Back then, time flowed so much slower. We did not rush through our days with our heads bowed down to glowing screens. Waiting was a virtue, an inevitable part of life that taught us patience. We waited years for a telephone line or a new car, and we waited in long lines for fresh bread. But this waiting gave us something precious. It gave us time to talk to our neighbors, to look each other in the eye, and to share our daily joys and sorrows. There is a common myth today that because we lived without modern technology, our lives were somehow poorer or more isolated. The absolute truth is the exact opposite. Life was undeniably richer in sincerity and emotional depth. We relied on living, breathing human connections. We fixed things when they broke instead of throwing them away, and we treated each other with that same enduring loyalty. The objects we owned were few, but they carried the weight of our shared lives. And now let us remember the faithful companion of our summer days, the so-called radio. If you close your eyes, you can almost certainly feel the cold, heavy metal of the tuning dial under your thumb. You can remember the distinct, slightly dusty smell of the thick brown leather case that protected it. We carried this little rectangular box everywhere we went, especially down to the shores of Lake Balaton. The radio was not just a device, it was a magical window to the outside world. You would slowly turn the dial, listening to the sharp, crackling static, carefully searching for a clear signal through the heavy summer air. Sometimes, you would catch the faint, forbidden voices of Radio-Free Europe, blending with the sound of the wind and the gentle waves. On Sunday afternoons, the air was filled with the passionate commentary of a football match. The tiny speaker vibrated with the cheers of distant stadiums. It did not matter that the sound was distorted or that the heavy batteries drained so quickly. What mattered was the magical feeling of sitting on a checkered blanket in the tall grass, surrounded by family, sharing a single broadcast. The radio connected us to each other and to a vast world far beyond our quiet streets. Let us take a sip of the past with the legendary Bambi drink. Long before Western sodas conquered our grocery store shelves, there was Bambi. You surely remember the rough, textured glass bottle and the metal crown cap that required a strong wrist to pry open. The drink itself had an unforgettable bright orange color and a famously synthetic yet utterly beloved sweet flavor. It left a slightly sticky residue on your lips and fingers. On a scorching July afternoon, sitting on the terrace of a local cafe with a cold bottle of Bambi was the ultimate luxury for any child. The ritual of drinking it was slow and deliberate. We would savor every single sugary drop, letting the mild carbonation tickle our throats. The empty bottles were heavy and sturdy, meant to be returned and reused thousands of times. Even today, if you concentrate hard enough, you can almost taste that unique, tar-like orange sweetness that defined Hungarian childhoods. It was the taste of pure, uncomplicated innocence in a bottle. Let us listen to the hissing sound of the classic Hungarian soda siphon. The heavy glass bottle, wrapped securely in a protective metal wire mesh, was an absolute necessity in every single household. You probably remember the local soda maker, driving his cart down the street, calling out for empty bottles. The exchange was a weekly ritual. You handed over your warm, empty glass bottles and received heavy, cold ones filled with violently bubbling water in return. Pressing the metal lever on top required a good amount of strength, and it always produced a loud, aggressive hiss as the pressurized water shot into the glass. This soda was the vital ingredient for a perfect summer frutch. the refreshing wine spritzer our fathers drank in the shade of the grapevines. For us children, the bubbling water was mixed with thick, dark red homemade raspberry syrup. The heavy siphon sitting on the kitchen table was a symbol of hospitality, always ready to quench the thirst of an unexpected but welcomed guest. Now we must talk about the undisputed king of our narrow roads, the Trabant 601. Getting this little car was a monumental event in any family's life, often requiring 5 or more years of patient waiting on a state list. When it finally arrived, it felt like a miracle. You can surely recall the unique, pungent smell of its 2-stroke engine, a strange but comforting mixture of cheap petrol and burning oil. The blue smoke followed it everywhere. The body of the car was made of duroplast, a material that felt more like hardened paper or plastic than actual metal. Closing the thin door produced a hollow, rattling sound that is absolutely impossible to forget. Driving a Trabant was an incredibly physical experience. You felt every single bump on the road, and you had to shout over the loud, lawnmower-like roar of the engine just to speak to the person sitting next to you. Yet this fragile little vehicle took whole families, heavily packed with tents and canned food, all the way to the sea. It was not just a car, it was our proud, noisy ticket to freedom. Let us turn our memories toward the kitchen and the iconic Kotiogo coffee maker. This sturdy, cast aluminium device was the true heartbeat of the morning household. The ritual began with the sound of the manual coffee grinder, filling the air with the rich, earthy aroma of Omni coffee. You would fill the small metal filter, screw the heavy top and bottom halves together, and place it over the blue flame of the gas stove. Then you waited for the magical sound. First came a quiet hiss, followed by the rhythmic, sputtering, bubbling noise that gave the coffee maker its name. That sound meant the day had officially begun. The coffee it produced was incredibly strong, dark and bitter, usually served in tiny, thin glass cups. We did not have fancy espresso machines or paper cups to take our coffee on the go. Drinking coffee was a stationary activity. Families gathered around the small kitchen table, enveloped in the warm steam and the intense scent of roasted beans, taking a quiet moment of peace before the busy day started. Let us unwrap a very peculiar winter treat, the famous winter ice cream. Back in those days, eating real ice cream was strictly a summer activity. The ice cream parlors simply closed their doors when the cold winds arrived, but children still craved that magical shape, and so the winter ice cream was born. Do you remember the shiny, slightly wrinkled gold and silver foil wrapping? You would peel it back with freezing bare fingers while walking home from school in the snow. Inside the classic dry wafer cone was not frozen dairy, but a dense, heavy, buttery cocoa cream, topped with a thin layer of hardened chocolate. It was sticky, incredibly sweet, and completely oblivious to the freezing temperatures outside. Eating it felt like a tiny act of rebellion against the dark, freezing winter months. Getting one from the local grocery store was a small reward for a good grade, bringing a bright, sugary smile to a shivery face. And now we must gather around the glowing screen of the Videoton television set. This was not a flat, lightweight panel on the wall, but a massive, heavy wooden piece of furniture that dominated the living room. Turning it on was a ritual of patience. You pressed the stiff, clunky button and waited for the vacuum tubes inside to slowly warm up. The screen would crackle with static before the black and white image finally emerged from the grey snow. The smell of warm dust and hot electronic components filled the room. We only had 1 or 2 channels, and the broadcast paused on Mondays. When a popular show like the famous music festival was on, the television became a communal fireplace. Neighbours who did not yet own a set would bring their chairs over. Someone always had to stand near the television, adjusting the rabbit ear antennas, perhaps adding a piece of aluminium foil to catch a better signal. We watched exactly the same programs at the same time, making our shared culture incredibly strong and deeply unified. Let us remember the cold, reliable presence of the Lehel refrigerator. It stood proudly in the corner of the kitchen, a bulky, rounded white machine with a heavy, thick metal handle that closed with a deeply satisfying, solid thud. You can surely recall the loud, aggressive rattle it made when the compressor suddenly turned on in the middle of a quiet night. It was the comforting sound of a well-fed household. Defrosting this mechanical beast was a monthly family event. Because frost would build up into thick walls of ice in the tiny freezer compartment, mothers would place pots of boiling hot water inside to speed up the melting process. Towels were laid on the floor to catch the dripping water. Inside, there was a very specific, clean, icy smell, mingling with the scent of smoked sausages and fresh milk in plastic pouches. These refrigerators were indestructible. They were built with thick metal and endless pride, lasting for decades and passing down through generations without ever breaking down. Now let us step outside and board the legendary Icarus bus. These massive, beautifully engineered vehicles were the absolute pride of Hungarian industry. You can instantly remember the deep, vibrating roar of the heavy diesel engine as it approached the bus stop. The smell of burning diesel fuel mixed with the distinctive scent of the smooth, dark leatherette seats. If you rode on the articulated buses, standing in the rotating accordion-like middle section was a thrilling, bouncy experience for any child. Do you remember the mechanical ticket punchers mounted on the metal poles? You had to slide your small, thin paper ticket into the slot and pull the black handle toward you. It made a loud, sharp clicking noise, punching a unique pattern of tiny holes into the paper. The ride was loud, the suspension was stiff, and the large windows often rattled in their rubber frames. Yet looking out those wide windows at the bustling grey streets of the city gave us a profound sense of belonging to the beautiful chaos of urban life. Let us savour the delicate elegance of cat-tongue chocolate. This was not an everyday candy. It was a symbol of celebration, gratitude, and refined taste. The chocolate came in a long, beautifully decorated box, usually featuring elegant golden letters. Inside, the thin, elongated pieces of solid milk or dark chocolate lay perfectly aligned in crisp, white paper trays. Their shape, flat on the bottom and rounded on the ends, mimicked a kitten's tongue perfectly. These boxes were the universal currency of respect. You gave them to a helpful doctor, a beloved schoolteacher, or brought them as a precious gift when visiting relatives on a Sunday afternoon. When you finally got to eat one, the ritual was to place the delicate chocolate on your tongue and let it slowly melt without chewing. The smooth, rich cocoa butter dissolved warmly against the roof of your mouth. It was a fleeting, luxurious moment of pure joy in a world that was otherwise focused on simple, utilitarian living. Let us take a journey to the bustling railway stations and the unforgettable station buffets. The smell of these small eateries is permanently etched into our memories. It was a heavy mixture of roasted coffee, lingering cigarette smoke, and frying oil. Standing at the high, round tables, you ate from thin, flimsy paper plates using incredibly cheap, lightweight aluminium forks that bent easily under pressure. The classic meal was a pair of hot, snappy frankfurters served with a large dollop of sweet, bright yellow mustard and a thick slice of fresh, soft white bread. You ate quickly, constantly checking the large mechanical clock on the wall, listening to the loud, echoing voice on the loudspeaker announcing departing trains. The mustard always ended up on your fingers, and the coffee was served in thick, durable glass mugs. These buffets were magical crossroads where tired workers, excited vacationers, and lonely travellers all stood shoulder to shoulder, united by the simple comfort of warm, inexpensive food. Now we must sing the catchy jingle of the Scala Cope. He was the animated, smiling little figure on our television screens, the mascot of the famous Scala department stores. We all knew his cheerful voice and his clever little rhymes by absolute heart. Going to a Scala store was a monumental family outing. These bright, massive buildings represented a new era of abundance. You can remember the awe of stepping onto the moving rubber stairs of the escalator, holding tightly to your parents' hand. The store had a very specific, intoxicating smell of new clothing, fresh leather shoes, and imported plastic toys all mixed together. For the first time, you could buy everything in one place, from washing machines to school supplies. We walked through the brightly lit aisles with wide eyes, marveling at the neatly organized shelves. Even if we could not afford to buy much, just wandering through the modern displays made us feel like we were stepping into a bright, colorful, and highly optimistic future. Let us breathe in the sharp, nostalgic scent of Feshka cigarettes. The soft paper pack, adorned with the iconic blue drawing of a flying swallow, was a permanent fixture in the breast pockets of our fathers and grandfathers. Back then, smoking was woven into the very fabric of daily life. The air in the living room was often a thick, grey haze of strong, untipped tobacco smoke. You can hear the metallic click of the lighter and the deep, raspy inhales that punctuated serious adult conversations about politics or football. The smell of that specific tobacco clung tightly to the heavy winter coats hanging in the hallway and to the yellowed curtains in the kitchen. When the men gathered around the table to play cards on a Saturday evening, the Feshka pack sat in the centre, slowly emptying as the night went on. While we now know the dangers of those times, that distinct, strong aroma remains undeniably linked to the deep, resonant voices of the men who raised us. Let us lace up our proudest footwear, the legendary Tissa shoes. Long before global brands flooded our markets, we had our very own symbol of athletic cool. You surely remember the vulcanized rubber sole and the iconic capital T logo stitched onto the side. Opening a brand new box released a strong, fresh smell of industrial rubber and canvas. We begged our parents for these shoes before the school year started. We wore them to physical education classes, running on the hard concrete playgrounds, the rubber squeaking loudly with every sudden turn. We loved them so much that we wore them until the soles wore completely thin and the fabric began to tear. Scrubbing them clean with a harsh bristle brush and white soap on a Sunday evening was a necessary chore to keep them looking sharp. Wearing Tissa shoes gave us a profound sense of youthful identity and belonging. They were tough, resilient, and purely our own. And now we come to a truly unique and slightly bizarre childhood snack, the fairy tale cheese. It came in a small, round paper box containing individually wrapped triangular wedges of processed cheese. But this was no ordinary savoury cheese. It was deeply flavoured with sweet cocoa and sugar. You pulled the tiny red string to effortlessly slice through the foil wrapping, revealing a firm, dark brown paste. The taste was a confusing but irresistible mixture of slight dairy sourness and sweet chocolate. We usually spread it thickly on a large slice of fresh white bread for an afternoon snack after school. The packaging featured beautiful, colourful drawings of classic fairy tale characters, which we love to collect and look at. It is a flavour combination that would completely shock anyone today, but for us, sitting at the kitchen table with milk on our upper lips, it was the absolute height of culinary delight. It is a taste that immediately transports you back to being 8 years old. Let us pour a glass of the elegant Traube soda. When this drink arrived on the market, it felt like a sophisticated upgrade from the sticky sweetness of Bambi. The bottle was made of gorgeous, textured green glass that felt cold and premium in your hands. Opening it released a wonderful, fresh aroma of real autumn grapes. It bubbled furiously when poured into the heavy crystal glasses that mothers kept safely locked in the living room cabinet. Drinking Traube soda was reserved for special occasions. It was the bright, fizzy centerpiece of wedding receptions, graduation parties, and major family birthdays. The taste was crisp, slightly tart, and incredibly refreshing on the tongue. It represented a subtle shift in our culture, a small step toward modernity and refined tastes. Holding that chilled green bottle made you feel grown up, elegant, and perfectly content in the warmth of a joyous family celebration. Let us pack our small suitcases and remember the unforgettable summers spent at the pioneer camps, especially the giant one by the lake. You can feel the crisp, fresh morning air blowing off the calm waters of Lake Balaton. The days began early with the loud, sharp sound of the brass bugle echoing through the rows of wooden cabins. We wore our crisp white shirts and carefully tied the bright red scarves around our necks. The smell of those camps was a mixture of pine needles, damp wool blankets, and the massive metal cauldrons where the cooks prepared hundreds of litres of thick, paprika-heavy goulash. At night, we gathered around enormous, crackling campfires. We sang marching songs together, the sparks flying up into the dark, starry sky. Away from the watchful eyes of our parents, we forged intense, lifelong friendships. We traded secrets in the dark cabins, feeling a tremendous sense of freedom, unity, and youthful invincibility. Let us open the bathroom cabinet and find the heavy glass bottle of Derby aftershave. This scent was the absolute definition of masculinity in our childhoods. It was a sharp, stinging, highly alcoholic fragrance, heavily laced with the smell of pine trees and menthol. You can vividly picture your father standing in front of the steamy bathroom mirror on a Sunday morning. You can hear the loud, rhythmic slapping sound as he vigorously applied the liquid to his freshly shaved cheeks. The intense smell immediately flooded the entire house, lingering in the hallway for hours. That specific aroma signaled that something important was about to happen. It meant the work week was over. It meant crisp, freshly ironed shirts were being put on, and the family was preparing to visit relatives or go for a formal Sunday walk. The scent of Derby aftershave was the smell of respectability, order, and the quiet pride of our hard-working fathers. Now we must proudly unlock the doors of the beloved Lada car. If the Trabant was our noisy ticket to freedom, the Lada was the ultimate symbol of arriving at a comfortable life. It was a serious, heavy machine made of thick steel. You can remember the distinct, rich smell of the brand new interior, a mix of polished vinyl, fresh rubber mats and engine oil. The steering wheel was thin and incredibly heavy to turn. But the true ritual was the Sunday morning car wash. Fathers would park the car in the yard or on the street, bringing out plastic buckets of soapy water and soft sponges. We meticulously washed, rinsed, and polished the paint until it shined like glass in the morning sun. The chrome bumpers had to sparkle perfectly. Taking the family out for a slow afternoon drive in a spotless Lada was an act of immense pride. It was not just a mode of transportation, it was a treasured member of the family, cared for with absolute devotion. Finally, let us return to the very heart of our homes, the ritual of preparing the Sunday lunch. This is the memory that holds us together the tightest. Early in the morning, the heavy cast-iron pots were placed on the stove. You can hear the sizzling sound of chopped onions frying slowly in thick white fat. Then came the magical moment when the bright red, sweet ground paprika was stirred into the pot, instantly filling the entire house with an intoxicating, warm, deeply comforting aroma. You can hear the rhythmic, wooden clapping sound of the mother beating the sticky dough to make fresh gnocchedli by hand. The steam covered the kitchen windows. When the family finally sat down around the table, eating the rich, simmering stew from porcelain plates with silver rims, a profound silence fell over the room. It was not just about the food. It was about the absolute certainty that, in this rapidly changing world, we had each other. The love was not spoken in words. It was served in heavy pots and shared over long, slow Sunday afternoons. As we open our eyes and return to the present day, we must realize a beautiful, heartbreaking truth. When we look back at these 20 forgotten things, we are not truly crying for the old radios, the sticky drinks, or the heavy cars. We are profoundly missing our own youth. We are missing the time when our parents were still young, when our grandparents were still sitting at the head of the Sunday table, and when the world felt small enough to understand. We miss the deep, unbreakable connections we had with one another, built on patience, shared struggles, and simple joys. If these memories brought a gentle warmth to your heart today, please do subscribe to the channel and give this video a like, so we can continue to preserve these beautiful echoes of the past together. Now, I have an important question for you. Which of these 20 memories touched your heart the most? And what is your favorite story from your own childhood in those days? Please, write your personal history in the comments below, and let us remember our beautiful youth together.